Throughout this video series on more versus enough, I've mentioned that when it comes to setting up budgets and learning about debt management and learning about investments in stocks and in mutual funds, there are lots of different sources to go to if you want to learn the specifics. Lots of different websites, of course, or you might want to go to the library or the bookstore and go to the financial self-help section and see which books best suit your personality. Just two things I want to add about researching this area. The first is that it's best to read several books on the subject, or visit lots of different websites, or both. This way the advice you receive will be more well-rounded. You'll be better able to tell in which areas the experts all agree, and in which areas there are different options to try, depending on your circumstances. Second thing I want to add is that you should probably stay away from any advice that includes lots of exclamation points and promises to get you rich quickly and with no risk. Because plots to get rich quickly, they either involve great risk or they're just outright scams. Get rich slowly is the more reliable theme. And there are actually several financial self-help books out there with that phrase, get rich slowly, in the title. Now, the whole idea of looking up and studying this type of information may seem unpleasant, but my experience is that money-related stress is even more unpleasant. Now, I was a complete financial idiot back in my 20s, but back when I was childless and single and had no health problems, I could get away with being a financial idiot. I could get away with just having an erratic income as a musician and relying on waiting tables to pick up the slack. And this is because my expenses were relatively low, at least in my early 20s. But then when I got married at age 25 and had my first child, I was totally unprepared for a barrage of totally predictable expenses. And then to make matters 100 times worse, I got in a car accident and was in a wheelchair for about a month and couldn't walk well for a total of about 5 months. And of course, my inability to walk meant I couldn't wait tables, which again, that was my only real source of a reliable income. So I ended up tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and I was paying hundreds of dollars a month just in interest charges alone. And it took me at least 5 years to crawl out of that hole. And one of the reasons it took me so long is that it took me a while just to organize my finances and develop some kind of plan to get out of debt. So this is the origin of why I felt it was important to write this chapter. And it's my hope that learning about what I'm calling the 4 levels enough will serve as something of a guideline for my children and nieces and nephews, as well as any other young adult who might read my book or watch this video series. And this, I hope, will help them avoid the kind of financial mistakes I made. And for any readers or viewers who are no longer young adults, they may have already made these types of financial mistakes. I hope that learning about the way I eventually got my financial life, at least more or less back in order, can give you some ideas about how to do likewise. Now, I do admit it was tedious to learn about budgeting, debt management, and investments. But again, my experience at being ignorant, the pains of being ignorant of these subjects, it's much greater than the pains of becoming informed. All right, just 2 closing thoughts. The first is that reaching a monthly income that will satisfy what I'm calling levels 1 through 4 will vary wildly from person to person. A single person will, of course, need a lot less than someone who has 6 kids. A writer will probably need less than a paleontologist who wants to finance his or her own archaeological digs. So it will be more difficult for some than for others to reach this definition of enough. But at least this guideline has a set goal. And especially if you look for as many ways as possible to cut back on unnecessary expenses, this goal of having enough, these levels 1 through 4, at least this has a chance of being attained. And this is unlike America's impossible by definition goal of making more than I make now. Now, the last point is that by no means does the achievement of these 4 levels of enough guarantee happiness. Because you can have levels 1 through 4 and far beyond and still have plenty of room for misery in your life, whether it's due to poor health or unsatisfying personal relationships or maybe just the random tragedies that life will sometimes bring. But having enough money does eliminate a significant amount of money-related stress. Below level 1, affording even basics like housing becomes a great struggle. Below level 2, much of your hard-earned money is just flying out of your pocket and going to credit card companies. Below level 3, a large setback like losing your job can bring great hardships. And below level 4, you may end up with insufficient money in your old age to support yourself independently. So rather than equating any level of money with achieving happiness itself, I like to think of having enough money to reach levels 1 through 4 as being a foundation for happiness. Now, a foundation alone will not provide shelter, but that's not a foundation's role. It's just there to provide sturdiness, or when you build a home upon it. So being fixated on wealth alone, to me that's just like creating this massive foundation and then nothing else, meaning there's nothing there to keep you dry and warm. On the other hand, ignoring the significance of financial sturdiness and just thinking, well, money doesn't matter, man, just follow your bliss. Well, that's kind of like building a home with no foundation at all. That is, that's a home that's at risk for falling apart when the first strong wind hits it. All right, my next and last video series on this hunting, gathering, video games book will further discuss the relationship between happiness and your work and your money, where these subjects overlap and where they don't. All right, that's it for my book's 5th chapter. Thanks for watching.